This is a video that I have been considering doing for a little while now, and I'm excited to bring it to you. I am going to be comparing the art of reading to The Good and the Beautiful. This is not a sponsored video. I have an affiliate link for the art of reading, which I've had for a while, but I want you to know, and you should know this if you've watched my videos for any length of time, I have used both of these curriculums extensively, so I'm very much giving you my opinion on them, but I am not giving this opinion to you to influence you in any one way or another. This is purely a comparison video. It's not necessarily a review video. I will share what has worked for us, but I want you to be able to make an informed decision and then, move forward based on that. So if you're curious to hear how these two compare, please keep watching. Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Christine. I'm a second generation homeschooler and I've been homeschooling my own 3 children for 6 years. My eldest is 10 and my youngest is 7. So they're all pretty close in age and they all have very different learning needs and they learn in different ways and are beautiful, unique individuals. And I just love the process of curating their education to suit them. So I would love to have you stick around and subscribe. I also have a free homeschool resource library that you're welcome to. It is linked down in the description below. There are a bunch of printables and resources in there for you, and I do keep adding to that. So please feel free to sign up. Let's jump into this comparison. I'm excited to do this video. For a little bit of background, I've used their kindergarten with 2 out of 3 of my kids, and I've used their preschool with all of my children. I have been using them in one capacity or another. I've used their curriculum for years, since the beginning of our homeschool journey, so like 6 years now. So I feel like I can give a fairly informed opinion on the curriculum and how it works. And then I have been using the art of reading for the past several months with my daughter who just turned 7. There are 100 lessons in this book and we are up to 70. I think we just did 79 or 78. So we're nearing the end of this. So again, I feel like I've got a fairly good opinion on how this works and the teaching method. Now, when I first shared about the art of reading, I got a lot of questions about how is this any different to The Good and the Beautiful? It looks like a knockoff of The Good and the Beautiful. And I get it, because when I first saw inside it, I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, this looks a lot like The Good and the Beautiful. Guys, it's nothing like The Good and the Beautiful. The only similarity I would say is that it's beautiful. It is beautifully curated as far as imagery and graphics and all of that. And that's because it was created by someone who is trained in graphic design. So she knows what she's doing with that. And it's something I really appreciate about it. So I would say that is basically where the similarities end. It uses a very different teaching style. The lessons are very different. It's just very, very different. So that is why I wanted to do this video, to really clear up how the two compare to each other and the pros and cons of each of them, because they both have their pros and cons. And again, this is not me promoting any one over another. I've used both. They've both served our family in different seasons and things work differently with different children. Now, this is not the full level of The Good and the Beautiful. This I had printed off at the beginning of the year with my daughter and we were just kind of doing the odd lesson. And I think I just printed out like the first unit or something, or the first several lessons. But there's 120 lessons in total for The Good and the Beautiful. Their phonics, I think, keeps going till level 2 or level 3. I'm trying to recall. I've done up to level 3 with my eldest son, and I think there was still some phonics practice in level 3, but I think most of the phonics is pretty much done by level 2. The art of reading is set up to be done in stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Stage 1 has 100 lessons. Stage 2 is going to be released very shortly, and then stage 3 is coming in 2026, and that is meant to be a complete phonics program. So your child is intended to be reading fluently by the end of stage 3. So that is kind of how it works with the levels. Right now, The Good and the Beautiful is available in PDF format and printed format. The PDF is entirely free to download and print at home. Currently, The Art of Reading is only available as a PDF, a paid PDF document, but there are plans to have this as a printed option in the future. I can't give you a specific date for that, but it is in the works. So bear that in mind. There will be a printed option available. So that's the difference with them. So I guess that's one of the first pros and cons. This is available as free. This is a paid product. And then obviously this has a printed version and this does not yet. The other thing to note that is quite significant is this is basically it. This is everything that you use to teach your child to read, and it comes, I haven't printed them off because I didn't need them, but it comes with B and D cards that you can print off and use as flashcards. And then the only other thing that you need to go with this is a stack of alphabet flashcards. Now I have the All About Reading Tiles app, and if you have the physical tiles, you could use those as well instead. So we've just used those. I've never used flashcards with this. I just use the learning app, and that's easy for us. Whereas with the Good and the Beautiful, you have the workbook, which is your teacher guide included in that. So you have your workbook, and then you also have the readers, which these are individual readers that come through. These are the printed, I printed off the PDF ones when I used this. So those are your readers. And then this is the Booster B cards because I couldn't find my A cards. I think I might have linked them out to someone. I can't remember. But you also have a Booster card set as well, which we'll look at that as well. So that's the differences. So there are more like floating components for the Good and the Beautiful than there are the Art of Reading. So if that's something that's important to you, if you like to have fewer moving parts and everything all in one, then this is definitely more geared toward that. So I'm going to turn the camera around now. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing. And we'll look inside the books and I will show you a few of the differences. Right, so we have all of our different books here. So like I said, this is a portion of the Good and the Beautiful. This is Reading B booster cards, but the A ones are what you would get with this. And then you have your readers here. Okay, so that's the Good and the Beautiful. That's the Art of Reading. Both of them have beautiful graphics. They're so engaging and colorful. And I will say both of them have fun daily activities. Both of them have lessons that are interesting and have different things to do. So I think that's a pro for both of them for sure. There's nothing boring about either of them. Let's look at the Good and the Beautiful first, and then we'll look at the Art of Reading and we'll compare them. So you've got the Good and the Beautiful have these readers, which you will find in the lessons, they'll prompt you to read these with your child. Actually, in the booster cards is where you're prompted to read them, and they are leveled readers, so they go up as they're learning concepts. They've got sweet little pictures in them, and they're just little books that look like that. Those are what your readers look like, and there's quite a few of them. I think these are all A. The different levels, like B and stuff, have their own readers, and then by the time you get to level 2 and 3, they've got actual like books where you share the reading with your child, whereas these ones are meant to be done just with your child reading them. So those are their readers. Those are very different to the Art of Reading, which I'll show you in a minute. And then you have these booster cards. Now these work in conjunction, but the way that you're actually really supposed to use them is your booster cards come first. So you work on these first, and your child needs to be up to a certain point in this book before they can carry on in that book. So if they have not mastered this, you just keep practicing this with your child without moving on with the lesson plans, which I do appreciate that. They changed that from the previous version of their language arts, and it definitely makes it more flexible. But it does mean that you're just going to sit and like study these words essentially until they get them. And I know this is level B, so realize that level A is going to be much more appropriate for kindergarten. But you've got like the things that they have to master before starting the course. I know that for the kindergarten level, they have to have mastered their alphabet and the sounds. There are sight words in here. And then when it comes to doing the reading of the books, first they read through these to build up their fluency. And then they go ahead and do the reader, and they do that twice. And this is kind of similar to how All About Reading is set up, because they have fluency sheets before you read the story. This is kind of a similar concept to that. And then they can put a sticker on it once they've mastered that. So this dictates the pace at which your child goes through the workbook. Now the workbook, everything that the teacher has to read is in blue, and it also tells you the items needed. There's not often a lot of items that are needed. And then the child will do the lesson, and the lessons are fun and engaging. But one of the major differences that you will find between the Art of Reading and the Good and the Beautiful is this is a spiral curriculum, whereas the Art of Reading is very much mastery based. And also the Good and the Beautiful does have an app that they use, and there are like songs and stuff that your child will log in to and listen to, and stories and all of that. The Art of Reading does not use any technology as far as that is. It's just the workbook. So I know that that's important to some parents, so that's just something to be aware of. And this is a phonics-based curriculum, so they have tried to reduce the sight words, that kind of thing. There's not tons and tons of sight words, but it is a phonics-based curriculum. One thing that you'll notice with the Good and the Beautiful, the difference between this and many other curriculums is there's a lot of writing on each page. There's a lot of reading to your child. It's very much like a storytelling curriculum, so it's got like a literature-based theme to it, I guess you could say. And for some kids, that's going to work really well. For others, not so much. You lose their attention really quickly. I've got kids that fall into both of those categories. So I do find that their lessons were very manageable as far as the time it took, their fun activities. It does start working on independent practice. This is going to depend on your child because not every child is going to be capable of doing independent practice. They might need to hold your hand a little bit more, and that's okay. The Good and the Beautiful also includes things like geography and poetry. Those are not included in the Art of Reading. The Art of Reading is primarily reading and a bit of grammar. So there's phonics and a little bit of basic grammar in it. Whereas this does include a few more things. There's picture study. Again, that's going to work really well for some kids, and for other kids, that's going to be more than they can handle, and they just need to stick with just the phonics. So yeah, lots of fun things. We didn't get any further than that in this, and I think we actually ended up moving to the Art of Reading around this time. So there is an assumption, I would say, with this curriculum, after having used it with 3 kids, that your child is going to learn at the regular pace that every average child learns to read. It's not set up to be like an Orton Gillingham kind of method, like All About Reading is. It's for your average child. There is some room for flexibility to go slower or go faster, but it is for your average reader. And sometimes there has been an assumption that a child will just like figure out some words, and that hasn't always been the case. So that's my experience with it. And I still think it's a great option for people with the free option. And if you're on a limited budget and you just need to get something that's still good quality, this is definitely a good option. It's not going to work for everybody, as is the case with every curriculum. So that's just something to bear in mind. You can see there's the target there. So your child should have mastered Booster Card 16 by the time they get to this point. The other thing that I have personally found and have had friends say as perhaps a criticism of the Good and the Beautiful is that there is a feminine undertone to it. It is more geared to the soft and sweet and all of that. And sometimes boys, really boys, just don't appreciate that. And I will say, my son didn't always complain about it, but he definitely got sick of some of the things in it that were just definitely more feminine geared. And that's fine. That's going to be different for every family, but that's also just something to bear in mind. It is very pretty, but it does tend to have more of a feminine leaning feel to it, I would say. So here we go to the Art of Reading, and I have done a flip through of this before, which I can share the link to that here. This is set up with a 100 lesson. So this is 100 lessons versus 120 in the Good and the Beautiful. You have your table of contents, and this is not a preschool curriculum, but I will say that it starts more gently than the Good and the Beautiful. There are a lot of notes in here about the methodology because she does use a different way to teach, and that's what I'm going to like show you right now, because this is probably one of the biggest differences. Is that I'm just going to read that first little bit to you there, because it says it exactly. English is structured in an open and closed syllable system. If you have used All About Reading at all, you'll very much know this, because that is very heavily taught in their curriculum. Anyway, English is structured on an open and closed syllable system, with the majority of syllables being closed. We introduce reading by first teaching the child to close the syllable, where a vowel is followed by a consonant, VC. This approach helps early readers easily and comfortably blend sounds such as am. We teach 2-letter blends and then progress to blending consonant, vowel, consonants, words, okay? So it's not a strictly traditional phonics sequence. New concepts are introduced one at a time, and the most frequently used digraphs are introduced early to reduce the number of sight words a child must memorize. And that is something that you'll find, and like she teaches the schwa sound with an E. So like in the, it's actually not taught as a sight word. It's taught as the digraph TH and then E as a schwa sound, so it's the, and the same with was. So that is not, those are not taught as sight words in here, and that's definitely different to every other phonics curriculum I've ever used. There is a note in here about like, is your child even ready to read? What the art of reading is about and all of that. So you can check this out on their website. It is a really good program. We use this 4 days a week. I think it's set up to be one lesson 5 days a week, and that's fine. Use it how it works in your family, but consistency is really important. And one of the other major things in this is that there are no illustrations in the readers, because that's going to make it harder for your child, which isn't fun for them, but it is really important so that they're actually reading and not guessing. And the way that I do reading practice with my daughter, because this is a challenge for her, I have her read these stories, and then in the evening she has a reader that's actually on the easy side for her that does have illustrations, and she reads to me from that, and that helps to build her fluency and her confidence. So don't feel restricted by any one thing. You can do the hard stuff and then give them some easier stuff to help build their confidence. Now there are sight words in here. They're highlighted in red, and any sort of new grammar concepts or punctuation is also highlighted in red, and I'll show you that. So again, there's lots of stuff in here. What if my child is learning faster or struggling? They give you ideas on how to deal with that, and then there are games as well that you can use for review. We haven't used the games at all, but that is there if you need it. And then it starts very slowly with introducing each letter of the alphabet. The lessons, as I said before, are very varying as far as activities go. It's no one thing, it's interesting, and your child is not going to get bored using this. It is a fun curriculum. It is mastery based, but there is spiral review. And I would say this is the reading version of Math with Confidence as far as the learning style goes. Mastery with spiral review. Math with Confidence is very good at that, and that's why it's worked so well for my children. And I would say this is very much structured in the same way. And this is the first reader that they have. The readers are all built into this, so you're not having to go and find anything else. It's already in here. It does make it a lot easier when you're teaching multiple children and you know that attention is going to dip really quickly if you have to like leave the room for anything or go looking for anything. It's just very helpful to have it all together. I mean, The Good and the Beautiful is fantastic still with their readers, but you're definitely going to have to be more planned and prepared to grab them when you need it. So these are the stories. They're going to introduce punctuation marks, and there are comprehension questions with the stories as well. So for instance here, it says, look at the red word in the first sentence. It is the word we would say okay, so I know some people say a, we say This is a common word, try to remember it. So that is how sight words are introduced. And then after line 1, they're going to ask different questions, and line 2. So this is what it starts like. I'm going to jump to where we are now in it so you can have a look. And this is the lesson that she completed yesterday. And this is where digraphs have started to be introduced. So she's learned TH and SH, and now we've started on long vowel sounds. So this was a new thing for her that she learned yesterday, and there's lots of practice with it here. This is something I've circled it because my daughter struggles to make that sound. So we've had to work on just even getting her mouth to make the SH sound because she was just saying everything as a straight S. So that is something that's an extra challenge for her at the moment. But learning the long, like she knows there's the long and the short sound, so it's just remembering in these words to say the long sound. So she's been doing that. Then there's a quick read the sentence and draw lines. And then the final part of the lesson was to read. And these are not easy for her. These are really hard for her at the moment. And every child's going to be different. Her fluency is just not there yet, and that's okay. So for instance, it says, look at sentence 3. What is the red squiggly line after the word mog called? And it's called an apostrophe. And then what does an apostrophe mean? It shows that something belongs to mog, okay? So that's the kind of basic grammar that is in there. She touches on homophones as well. And I'm trying to think what else we've done. I think that's mostly it. Adjectives have just been introduced, and nouns. They're there, but I certainly wouldn't expect your child to have mastered it, and it's in there enough that they're getting exposed to it, but they're not expected to know that inside out by any means at this point. And I will just say that that has been a marked difference between The Good and the Beautiful and this, is that the pacing in this has made it so that my daughter can continue even though she's still struggling. Even though she's still not fluent, she is capable of getting there. It just takes her a bit more hard work. Whereas this one, we would have to stop and review and review and review, and then we'd be able to carry on. This one we have not had to stop, and that's not because she's getting it easily. It's just because the lessons are structured in a way where she can still continue on with it without having to stop, because the review is still built in. So it's mastery based with spiral review. So even though like an apostrophe is mentioned here, it's been mentioned many times over the course of this book, and she didn't remember the name of it, but she knew what it meant. And so she will get that eventually, and it will continue to be mentioned. So that's just something to bear in mind. And with her, I tend to just put a piece of paper over this, and she just does one line at a time because all the writing is a bit overwhelming to her. And you read through each story twice. So she loves ticking them off and then going back and ticking them off the second time that she's done it. And I love the comprehension questions. They're really important because when their little brains are working so hard to just figure out the word, it's hard for them to then remember what they've even just read. So this has been a good practice. And I'll just show you by the end of the book, you're going to be doing something like this. So it's always either 1 or 2 pages, almost always just 1 page like this, and then a story. And the stories are kind of back and forth. Like it'll say, read the story here on read the story 47 on page 174, and you'll see that's there. So you might go back and forth, but it's structured well, so it all works. And then that's the end. There are games in here. So while The Good and the Beautiful has the letter tiles app, and there are games and songs in there, you'll be using letter cards. Or like I mentioned, I use All About Reading's letter tile app I've just used for these games. And they do, so someone did say, oh, there's no spelling practice in it. There is, it's just not advertised as spelling practice. So for instance, I will say a word, like I'll say the word cat to her and she has to spell it with her letter tiles. So there is spelling practice built into it. It's just the focus is actually on hearing the letter sounds and knowing how to blend them and to put a word together, and less about like it all being about spelling. I don't think there's any writing in here, actually, now that I think about it, which is a difference between The Good and the Beautiful and this. So they will circle things and draw lines and color and cut and all of that, but there's no handwriting practice in this at all, which makes it very flexible for the age that you start it with. So some children are very ready to learn to read early on, but their handwriting skills just aren't there yet. They're just not developmentally ready for that. So this would work very well for those kind of kids, whereas this one does have some. It's still basic. It's not over the top, but as you can see, there is handwriting practice in here regularly. But we have a handwriting book that is from the same curriculum, and we use that, and I actually really like it. I just want you to see how different the two programs are. They both will teach your child how to read. Okay, they're both phonics-based curriculums, but the way in which they teach the phonics is different. There's no lists of sight words in here. The sight words are built into the stories, and when they're pointed out initially, they're going to be in red. Here we go, I found one. So the word to is in red there. Also, she does underline the special blends here, so your child is aware of them, and I find that very helpful when they're still in a stage where, like, some little mouths are struggling just to form these sounds. I've had 2 out of 3 of my kids where a TH was something that had to be changed from a D sound to a th sound, and that whole, just the whole thing of remembering to put their tongue between their teeth and make that sound is an effort in and of itself. So to make that a little easier on them, I do appreciate. So ultimately, 2 great programs, 2 beautiful programs. They're interesting and engaging. One is mastery based, one is very much spiral, and they do have different pacing and slightly different ways of teaching phonics. This has fewer sight words, and yeah, they're just different, very different programs. I really hope that that was a helpful comparison video for you, and that it will help you make an informed decision moving forward with your child as to which program works well. I think they're both really good programs, and I think that they have their unique strengths and weaknesses. I found blessings from both of them in our homeschool, and I recommend both of them to you. So if you have any questions for me, please leave them down in the comments below, and I will try my best to give you answers. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
What if the world had more of your smile? What if the wind could spread